Hey everyone, so today we're going to take a look at one of the most foundational concepts in Buddhism, the Eightfold Path, but through a lens that might completely flip how you see it. We're exploring a path that doesn't just go up, it actually folds.
Okay, so let's jump right in. You know how we usually think of spiritual paths, right? It's like a ladder. You climb one rung, then the next, and you keep going up to get to some goal. But what if that's not the whole story? What if, instead of just climbing, that same ladder folds? I mean, what could that even mean? That's the puzzle we're going to try and solve together today.
To figure this out, we're diving into a really unique synthesis that comes out of Nichiren Buddhism, and we're going to focus on what are known as the Three Great Secret Dharmas. These three practices, Kaidan, Honzon, and Daimoku, they're the keys to understanding our whole folding ladder idea.
So when you look at these three things, you've got to wonder, are they just three separate items on a checklist? Three different paths you have to walk down? Or, like our metaphor suggests, is something way more integrated and frankly more interesting going on here? Let's find out.
But hang on, before we can see how the path folds, we really need to get a handle on how it's traditionally laid out. So let's do a super quick refresher on the classic foundation, the Eightfold Path, and how it gets organized into what's called the Threefold Training.
So, the famous Eightfold Path, right view, right action, all of that, is often grouped into these three big categories. First, you have Sila, which is all about our ethical conduct. Then there's Samadhi, which is about meditation and focus. And finally, Prajna, which is all about developing wisdom. Just think of this as our standard framework, the ladder, right before it starts to fold.
All right, so we've got our foundation. Now, this is where it gets really, really cool. Let's see how this all builds into a totally new way of looking at things. It's time to fold the ladder.
This one line right here captures the most powerful idea of this whole explainer. It's just perfect. The path doesn't disappear, it concentrates. So this isn't about throwing away the steps, not at all. It's about bringing them all together into one incredibly powerful single point.
So here's how that fold actually works, step by step. You start with the Eightfold Path. Then, those 8 parts get organized into the threefold training we just talked about. And then, and this is the big move, that entire structure folds in on itself, collapsing into one single integrated practice. It's all still there, just in a super concentrated form.
Okay, so what does that mapping actually look like in practice? How do these classic ideas connect to these newer practices? Let's break it down and really look at this synthesis as one single movement, just seen from 3 different angles.
And boom, this slide just lays it all out for us. This infographic is basically our map for the rest of this journey. It shows exactly how that threefold training collapses into the 3 Great Secret Dharmas. So let's walk through each of these columns one by one. First up, in green, we've got Sila. This is the whole world of ethical conduct. Traditionally, this covers right speech, right action, and right livelihood, basically how we show up in the world in a good way.
So how does Sila fold? Well, it concentrates into what's called the Kaidan, or the precept platform. And I just love how the source material frames this. It says it's not a rule book. Instead, it's the consecrated ground where ethical life takes form. So it's not just a list of do's and don'ts, it's the actual community, the space itself, where ethics become a living, breathing reality.
Okay, let's slide over to our second column. In orange, Samadhi. This is all about the practice of meditation and concentration. It includes right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Basically, the training of the mind.
Now, in this synthesis, Samadhi finds its complete home in the Honzon, which is the object of devotion. And again, the wording here is so important. It's not a picture on a wall. It becomes the living focal point where concentration converges. All that mental energy, all that effort and mindfulness, it all finds its natural home right here. It's a dynamic focus, not just some static image.
And that brings us to our third and final column, in purple, Prajna, or wisdom. This is traditionally all about right view and right intention. Seeing things the way they really are and making sure our motivations are aligned with that clear seeing.
So, how in the world do you concentrate wisdom itself? It sounds pretty abstract, right? Well, in this practice, it becomes Daimoku, which is the chanting of Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. This is not a slogan. It is prajna enacted as sound. The whole idea is that
The entire wisdom of a major text like the Lotus Sutra is collapsed into a single act of voice. You're not just thinking about wisdom, you're actually performing it, embodying it with your whole being.
So we've seen how the path folds. It's a really elegant idea. But why? Why does this matter? What's the actual benefit of looking at it this way? This brings us to the real power of having a practice that's this integrated.
Let's be absolutely crystal clear about this, because it's probably the most important takeaway. The original 8 parts of the path, they have not been thrown away or replaced. Not at all. They've simply been gathered. Every single one of them, right speech, right effort, right view, is totally present and active inside this one concentrated practice.
And what you get from this kind of compression is this really beautiful paradox. On the one hand, the practice becomes incredibly accessible. You have a very clear starting point. But on the other hand, because it contains the entire Eightfold Path folded inside of it, it becomes inexhaustible. You could spend a whole lifetime just unpacking the depths of ethics, concentration, and wisdom that are all contained right there.
So we'll end with this final thought from the source material that just sums it all up so perfectly. What looked like 3 separate practices has always been one movement, seen from 3 angles. It's such a powerful reframe. It's not 3 different things you have to do, but one single integrated act of your body, your mind, and your speech. It kind of leaves you with a question, doesn't it? What else in our lives looks like a bunch of separate pieces, but might actually be one single beautiful movement? Something to think about. Thanks for digging into this with me.